Hello and welcome back to another new edition of Windows and Current Affairs, and today we talk about the new parliament and the participation of women in the upcoming parliament 2015. Speaking about the new parliament, observing Egypt's final and third political process towards completing the political and economic roadmap, the 2015 parliamentary elections are approaching, as we all know, an end in a few days, and the new parliament will be supposed to be convening before the end of this year. Between what was expected and what was surprising in the 2015 parliamentary elections, we're going to take a deep look into that, and also the representation of women in the parliamentary elections for 2015, a full comprehensive analysis and a thorough look over what happened in the 2015 parliamentary elections. And we're very delighted to have with us Dr. Awad, the Professor of Political Science, and Dr. Mehna, also Professor of Political Science and a political analyst. Good evening. And let me start off by you, Dr. Awad, speaking about the elections of 2015. The turnout in stage 2 was relatively higher, 3%
exactly, yeah.
Points than the
it's 29, they say 29%.
29.83, the other one was 26.5. Yes. Where do you see the difference? Why did that, what are these 3 points? I mean, how could they be justified?
No, it could be very much justified for one thing. Well, by the media now, in the second stage of the election, there was a real good race in the media about the candidates and informing the voters with the candidates, and even the candidates were doing a good job. They're trying to make themselves known to the voters, I mean, by billboards and political advertisements.
So they've already warmed up.
And exactly, because, I mean, they learned from the first stage. Even media also learned from the first stage that they should give more attention to the candidates. I mean, how could candidates know? How could voters know about the candidates except through this medium, which is the media here? And that was one basic reason why there was an increase. Besides, you have to understand that the 13 other governorates in the second stage, I mean, you have big cities such as, I mean, Cairo is the capital. You have also other cities, Al-Governorates, which is quite, I mean, have a lot of population. Demographically speaking, it's a big population. So you can understand that the 13 other governorates, I mean, have more impetus, had more weight, in other words, than the 14 in the...
They had more gravity.
Gravity and I mean, I say demographically speaking, and Cairo also, this is important, this is the capital, so that's why this is why the turnout were a little bit higher. I mean, not as expected. I mean, we expected more, actually, but it's been higher than the first stage.
Is it that, or do you think because people saw that there were some undesired figures that took the lead in Giza governorate, and some without mentioning names?
Without mentioning names,
they got disappointed, so they were. I mean, they got evoked to be able to go to the polling stations?
Probably this could be one thing, is they wanted other figures, or they wanted other candidates that they want them to win, other than being imposed on them or forced to accept in the first stage. But interesting, I wanted to refer to the electoral law this time, I mean in the elections this time, that you have 3 systems in elections, and this is also, you know, can allow variety, and it might confuse, by the way, the voters, because you have 3 different systems. You have the proportional, which is a party list, and you have the majoritarian list, which is a closed list with a coalition of parties, and you do have the single member. So this is the idea also. It could be a good opportunity to understand, to get to know, and for even those who want to join the parliament to have seats inside the parliament. This is a good opportunity. But on the other side, it could confuse voters, because you don't know who's who, and particularly the single member, those in the independent.
Right. I take it from Dr. Awad to you, Dr. Mehana. She was speaking about the constituencies in larger cities and everything, but also looking statistically over the readings of each constituency and the second, that happened through the second phase. We have the highest voter turnout in the second stage was the governors of, like for example, the first one, first is South Sinai, 41%.
This is really quite important. In addition to what Dr. Howard said, I think there's also two main factors that play the role. And I think these factors, number one, are social factors, and the second one is economic factors. The social factors, there's more tribal and family candidates that are basically supported by their family members. And if you look at Dakahliya, Sharqiya, Munufiyya, these are all tribals, Kafr Sheikh, these are all a lot of farmers, and they're all close families. So the fact here is one member
how they can agree on laws. Particularly, this is one of the major challenges.
Particularly, that there are many laws awaiting to be
ahead,
discussed.
of course, of the, and this is a great, I mean, one of these challenges. And the most challenging is the 300 laws for 4 years, last 4 years, that they have to look at, review within 15 days. You see, they have only 15. It's a big challenge. 300 laws that they have to review. Either they pass it or review.
But I guess we've got to be used for that situations, because we're always having the same situation. We're doing everything in a hurry and then we repeat it again.
Exactly.
This is one element that they could agree on.
It's a random planning, we call it.
Right, but
we get in a hurry, you know, because we want a country
delaying
to settle.
the election, the parliamentary elections for.
Yeah, we want the country to settle, so we do it in a hurry, and then we realize we messed it up, so we just do it again. We're just running in circle. And we heard that, you know, there's a view now that the constitution needs to be changed. So we're just getting back to square one. I agree definitely with Dr. Awad. The members are loose. There is no solid blocks of ideologies that can drive particular direction, you know, towards health or education or, you know what I mean, or administrative reform. So you got individuals all over the place. There are 420, I think, 480. So 120 in the proportion list. So the rest 80% are all loose without unified, let's say, vision. And that makes it very difficult on agreeing, particularly on legislation.
Yes. And
when it comes to the 300, I think they're going to have to pass them. Politically, nobody can afford to actually stop one law. Give you an example, the investment law. Imagine if you had to stop the investment law, the unified investment law. You already had agreements, you already had investors in place, so you can't really delay that. So I think they will have to pass them.
We're going to touch on the different types of laws and everything that are awaiting in detail, because it's a very important point that you raised later on. But let's talk about the Egyptian expats. The Higher Election Committee announced the results of Egyptian expats, which were part of the final numbers, of course, 21.65 compared to expat vote in the first stage. Now, the majority of Egyptians who voted abroad were between 31 and 40. How did that happen? What about the rest?
40%.
31 and 40
age, yes. Remember, we're talking about 13 million Egyptians outside. So if we take the same percentage as we have inside, you got about 60, or let's say 50% of them, 6 million are eligible. So out of the 6 million that's supposed to vote, you got about 50,000. So here again, it's a different culture. So you've got inside Egypt, the culture in the mega cities are totally different to the villages. Villages are mobilized to support their family member or support their neighbor. Mega city citizens are more concerned, are more realistic, let's call it. So they look pessimistically on the figures that going into you know, the parliament, and they say, no, I'm not going to get involved in that, it's a waste of time, or whatever. But people outside see it totally different, because they're looking at one thing, election or a program that you can go through with. Now, when you talk about a campaign with a program, this is what I'm going to do through the 4 years. Egyptians here in most places will find it quite difficult to understand, and they might not read your program, you know, your campaign. But people outside want to see something written. What is it that you're going to do in the next 4 years? And therefore, when they find people, all they're doing is just, you know, billboards and signs all over the place, but you're actually not giving me solid vision, solid objectives, solid strategy to be implemented in the next 4 years. And how, out of the 4 jobs of or tasks of the parliament, whether constitutional, directing government, monitoring the budget, or even signing off or endorsing agreements, which of these are you qualified or experienced?
Okay, so when I can come in here and ask you a question, do you consider candidate, I mean, a hopeful candidate like Donald Trump, for example,
Yeah.
so very much different from what you're saying? It's the same
Yes,
case.
Yes, yes.
I
don't
mean,
get
he
it.
doesn't have a program. He doesn't have anything tangible to be so that you can trust him to.
But here you're talking about an institution.
Institutions.
Institutions.
Yes, it's all about it. You are very right about that because
institutions.
we are very
Donald Trump is
has
moving
been like
from,
that all the time.
Exactly.
In the States.
They know it's
and we can
not
take a flashback to Ronald Reagan.
exactly. It's not about emaad.muhanna. It's not about Donald Trump. It's about the Republicans. So they because Donald Trump is just a pin.
You can take Obama as an example.
Exactly. So the answer to your question, thank God you provided the answer.
Right.
Because it's
I
an
apologize
institution
for that.
it's true. It's
Right.
good that we're learning from that. But they know that there's no the institutionalization.
Then we should learn from those
exactly.
from this
They
system.
know. Yeah.
At least we
But
can
there is
get
one
to-
thing just I wanted to say. That's when you speak about the expats, where, and that's I wanted to ask where. If you're speaking about expats in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, yes, you
The
can
highest,
the
Saudi
highest,
Arabia.
but not in European countries, because again, they are used to, and they are coming back. They are not immigrants. They are coming back, and they are just working out there. I mean, they're working abroad. I mean, in Kuwait or in Saudi Arabia, and they're the same mentality. They don't care about to read. But this is in the European. It was really also
Actually,
low.
this could be the answer to my next question to you, Dr. Awad. The Egyptian expatriates, for example, I mean the statistics. Saudi Arabia came in first, like you said.
Well, that's
before
why I
as
said,
in
I mean,
voter
if you're
turnout.
looking at Arab countries.
It's just the Arab countries.
The
Kuwait,
labor.
just the- it's the
18.8%,
labor.
and
Yeah, it's
UAE.
not the professional
They're
category.
expats
it's the
as
labor,
labor,
the
exactly.
labor category.
Labor,
on
mostly
contracts.
labor. Yeah.
But the Europeans are different because the immigrants, most of them,
Yes.
or in the
They
United
don't
States
care
or
about
Australia in
that.
the South.
So we are speaking about parliament, a new parliament that is supposed to be convening or holding its first session in before the end of this year, and it should be composed of 596 members of parliament, MPs. This is the highest number of Egypt's 150-year parliament.
Oh, yes, yes, indeed. And this is another one of the unexpected things as well, because I don't know how.
How is that supposed to
This
look
is,
like?
I mean,
Because
this is to me
as
also.
much
I
as
don't
They
know how,
normally
yes.
work it per head, so they looked at the quota getting it at 170,000. So that's what they worked
Have
on.
you
But
seen
that's
the
too
parliament,
high.
sir?
It's
I
too
mean,
high.
it's small. It's small.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
a
you're
big.
right.
I mean, where are the places? This is something that you have to consider. I mean,
Yeah.
how they can sit. The sitting itself is going to cause
And
a
how
problem.
are they going to
No, the
debate?
sitting, the arrangement of the sitting, and where are the opposition and all this. This is again, it's a protocol inside the
you
parliament.
raised a very important point. Where is the opposition?
Yeah, this
That's
is another
also
thing.
a
Another
raised
thing.
question.
That's why I kept saying this
Where
time.
is the opposition?
This time you're not allowing opposition because this is the three election systems that you're using. Here you are not, I mean, before maybe you used to have one party system and then the others are opposition compared to the one party
124
system.
party-based lists?
No, I'm speaking about the three election systems, the single, the
28 will be
majoritarian.
appointed by the president and 120
Yes,
by the
because
party.
5%.
448
places,
seats for
yeah.
independents,
Five,
right?
yes. 5%, that means 20. 20 seats, only 20 places, I mean, being appointed.
600.
Yeah. So it's, imagine, and the place is not that big. That's the placement. This is one important, by the way, thing. And I'm trying to say that the election system doesn't allow to have opposition. Actually, you don't have competition. This is one thing about the competition. We don't understand the culture of competition or the multi-party system, the meaning even of a multi-party system. This doesn't exist in our culture. I'm afraid to say you have so many parties, but that doesn't mean you have a multi-party system. A multi-party system means you have more than one political party that is a majority party to compete. That's the meaning, I mean, politically speaking. So you don't have this culture of a multi-party system. Competition is I win and the other should lose. But the idea of winners and losers, this is again, it's not clear.
But don't you think this is the case everywhere in the world?
No. In the West, of course, you have the multi-party system. You have more than one competing party. I mean, that can take majority. majority vote. Even now, lately, what happened in England, and this is I really admire. Now it's becoming even more. The competition is now you have more than two competing political parties. This is last time there was about yes, and this was really, to me, was very interesting that other parties has become equal or competing equally to the Labour and to the Conservative Party in England. And this is in the West. You have the multi-party system definitely well defined. Here,
yes, I was speaking about the political competition and the dirty games that are played.
This is something else. This is really completely. This is not. This is not competition, as we understand.
It's used like that everywhere. I mean, the political competition.
Of course, you can use all means.
But you still have the benefit to the country, number one. But here people are competing against the country. So destroying the political culture by giving, bread and oil.
Yes, that's good.
But if Dr. Awad allows me, I would just like to explain the different types of parties that the world has. You do have the limited setup and the unlimited setup. Even the unlimited is still controlled. You reached, I think, about 115, which absolutely dividing the country into pieces. So we needed to gather that. In terms of the unlimited, you have open unlimited and you have closed or they call it limited unlimited. So you say you can have between 3 and 5. And this is what Dr. Awad is talking about, is that you cannot open it to that extent that I'm having almost 150 parties, because it's just dividing the country. And the plan that President Sisi's got at the moment as part of the mega plan 2011-2060 is all parties in Egypt will be totally dissolved and establish only 3 by constitution to limit the establishment of 3 parties. That's it. We're writing off all parties. And this is to have political maturity and to create that competition in a clean setup. So write them off, all of them, and then we're going to establish 3, A, B, and C. The ideology of A is this, B is this, C is this. You join whichever one you want, based on your understanding. And that particular plan that I'm talking about was introduced in 2012 in a second crossing. And it basically said, I need 2 parties that are solid, like the Republican or the
more than one party.
Democrats.
That's most important.
And then you would have a third one that always plays on the majority, like the Labour Party or Socialist Party. So you will have 2 strong parties, and the third one always push the direction towards what the country needs. So I need to focus more on illiteracy, so it goes towards illiteracy. I focus more on social justice, so it goes towards social justice. But you can play with that. And this is what Dr. I was saying. Australia, New Zealand, there's only 3. England, you have 2 or 3 that's on the map. United States. Germany, you've got 5. But you cannot have such unlimited setup of parties and the contribution is nil. This is the bottom line. And a lot of people are saying, no, it's a maturity in the Egyptian society that we have a lot. No. If you have about £500,000 Egyptian pounds, you can set up a party. And that's not contributing to the actual maturity of the society to build a new democratic model. So society cannot stand on its own because we've got a very high illiteracy rate. You're talking about 39%, 42% poverty rate. So what we need to do here is the government needs to push people into political maturity by setting it up. So in other words, just like kids, if you're not going to do what you're supposed to do, I'm going to help you to do it. If you're not going to do what you're supposed to do, I'm going to help you to do it. So we set up 3 parties only, and this is the ideologies and the strategies of each one. Join whichever one you are like. And we close it.
Right. Dr. Awad, there are 3 packages of laws in the next parliament that they should be, they have an urge to sit down and discuss as soon as possible, particularly those laws issued during the transitional period under President Adli Mansour, of course, in accordance also, and also add to that the 50 laws issued in accordance with the articles of the 2014 Constitution. You talked about that. So how do you think this is going to be managed with the variety of political parties and the conflicts and the
variety of the constituency of the of the parliament itself. There are laws that you cannot really change, as been said about the investment laws, because that means going to confuse the investors in the first place. There are,
but it needs to be amended. It needs to be amended.
It could be amended. It could be amended, definitely. But again, I mean, this needs, I mean, really a strategy.
Because it's already confusing the investor now with its current status.
This is,
but there's agreements in place.
Exactly. You cannot really.
The law, if you allow me, Doctor, the law 18 for 2015 of the the administrative system, you can't change it. You can't touch it.
So there are laws that you cannot really now fiddle with.
No.
You cannot.
It's not attracting
you're going to have
efficient foreign investment.
Carry on with it until you do a new one.
Exactly. Unfortunately, yes, you have to carry on with it until you can make a new one.
Until it's legislated inside the parliament, you mean?
Yeah, it cannot be on the spot. You know, there are certain laws that you have to keep it and work accordingly, because there are contracts and there are official, I mean, contracts here. That means you're going to delay more what's supposed to be done. Well, the most important package here that you should refer to is the basic freedom, I mean, here, laws and rights. This is very important. And but the problem here and the challenge that you are now in a state where you have a war against terrorism. So again, what about basic? This is the basic rights. I mean, how could you deal with that? This is again another challenge, very challenging, I would say, for the parliament to work. I mean, particularly you have this situation right now is not ripe at all to make now the freedom to make demonstrations, to express, I mean, your anger. I mean, if you're not you're not that free to do that, because I mean the country at that moment is not
right. But Dr. Awad, don't you think that observing what's happening lately in France, for example,
this is exactly you have
the precautions that the French president took, regardless of any
there's
human
no
rights
demonstrations
or any
to be done. Yes, exactly.
You think that we are in a better situation than France is and than Germany is, and
but
the
just
United
I wanted
States
to tell you
itself
something.
is?
I want to tell you
Doing
that
fine,
was one
fine.
basic reason why young people did not really vote. You don't have a high turnout among the youth because of the basic rights. That's one
But we're
thing.
doing perfectly fine compared to what's happening now in France, because when they came to a critical situation, they just disregarded.
But it's going to be. But the idea here is it's a temporary. It's going not to be permanent.
Also.
Well, we never mentioned whether this is going to last for how long, but it is temporary.
But you just said we were in a war. We are still in a war against terrorism.
I understand, but this is again a worry. I mean, if you keep me not expressing my basic rights, I mean, for some time, whatever the reason is, I mean, here still it is a problem you are facing. And that's another package of laws that need to be carefully thought of and reviewed, by the way. Yes, I know you have a situation which is not ripe for that at the time being, but another package I think that is very pressing, which is education and health. And this is here where you can make all kind of amendments if there is a real will.
Again and again.
A real will to do that, because education and health, it's both. We cannot separate. It's inseparable. They have to go together. And you have to give more budget. And again, we are still in our economy, we are trying to work. Still, we are in jeopardy, by the way. Our economy is not that strong. So you need to give more budget, and we have also many challenges ahead of us. I mean, here the war. So I think
to every action there is a reaction.
Exactly.
Have complications.
So the packages you are talking about,
optimistic.
This is a challenge that the Parliament is going to face.
Among also the group of laws that should be taken seriously into discussion is the first sessions of the Parliament is, for example, the insurance law. It needs to take into consideration more study, as well as dire increase in pensions, taking into consideration the inflation that is oversweeping the country. So if you can...
let me start, if you allow me, from the point that Dr. Awad mentioned, is that what is happening in France is a temporary violation of rights. Let's name it that way.
That's what
Temporary, it means
to
that expression of freedom of expression is there. So citizens know that what is happening is temporary. But the Egyptians don't have that confidence, because you've always had a martial law. So if you can't tell me now, well, it's because of terrorism. We've already had it for 30 years. so this is, we have to respect the citizens' mentality.
So you're talking about transparency and credibility.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So I'm saying, as Dr.
That's the core. I mean, you
it's a culture. It's a culture. It's a political culture and maturity in the leadership. And I'll get to that point, and I'll thank you for it. When we get to the actual insurance, we've got two sides, really, the social insurance and the health insurance. And here they're costing Egypt billions of dollars in medication. If you talk about pollution, we attract factories with cement, ceramics. Why? Because Europe prevents having such factories. So we have them happy that we're making a couple of billions of dollars. But we actually, against the $2 billion that we got earning, we spent $10 billion in medication.
Right.
And this is what you have. So the fact here is it needs to be thought of, as Dr. Awad said. This is the first thing. Number two, we need a transparency when it comes to the investment of the actual fund. Where is it invested? So you have that everything is becoming national security. So where is that money invested? I'm entitled to know. Because
that was actually one of the main reasons for the January 25th revolution.
Exactly.
The
disappearance of 400 billion.
The same very core.
It's the same problem, which means that you're not progressing. And that adds another factor, is why youth is actually, or haven't been really participating in voting, because they haven't seen change. So the fact here is, when it comes to insurance, I have to start from ground zero. Guys, this is what we have, or Egyptians. Fellow Egyptians, this is what we have on a table. 50 billion, for example. This is where we're going to invest it. Or privatize it, as it happens in Europe. Everyone will get allowance of 15% of his salary to go before tax. So if you earn 1,000, for example, so you've got 150, you're allowed to take it before tax and invest it wherever you want. But don't ask me about a pension. And I think this is the right way to go. And get people to basically invest it the way they like. When it comes to investment, so we have to do it. One very dangerous factor, which is the informal sector. The informal sector that's in Egypt, that contributes about 60% of the total economy of the people in the street, and the total amount of money that is being going around in circles about 1.2 trillion Egyptian pounds. And these people, they're about 6.5 million. So if you multiply that by, let's say, 2 or 3 in a family, so you're talking close to 20 million Egyptians outside the umbrella of social and medical insurance. That's an informal sector, because these people have no jobs, so therefore they're not insured. And therefore you have a lot of street kids. So you know what I mean? It's a very comprehensive look.
And too much details.
Exactly. So you can't just issue a law and say, this is what I'm going to do, because you've got 20 million people outside the social law, which means that if somebody dies, the kids are on the street, and it's going to cost the country crimes, drugs, terrorism. That's why education is a long-term investment.
It's intermingled with other.
By the way, the informal,
Unfortunately, we only have 3 minutes, and I need also to.
Can I add to this transparency, accountability? This is very important.
Right.
I mean, this has been bragging about accountability. That's even accountable to the parliamentary members who've been saying promises. Of course, there was no program being written, but at least they were saying promises.
And we won't be
accountability. This is.
But there is an important question I want to ask you about, which is about the income tax law, the property tax law, the capital gains tax law, which is on top of the most important issues that should be addressed.
And this is a very icky issue. It's a very icky issue, by the way.
Right. Don't you think? How can that be regulated? Because we only have 3 minutes, and I need you to elaborate on that generously, if you could, please, Dr. Howard.
I mean,
especially after the Minister of Finance decision to impose the capital gains law.
You see, I will just, for 1 minute even, I will not take the 3 minutes. No, the idea
One
here...
of the major issues also.
It's very major, but the idea is whatever you put as a law and you are not making effective, this is the idea. This is very important. Whatever, I can give you a very good solution. I mean, a law that can guarantee that you can take taxes, and these taxes from the, as you have just said, from the property tax,
the capital tax,
the capital,
instead of lifting the subsidy.
How to activate it and how to make it, that people are to do it. I mean, there are many laws, there are very good laws, but the point is nobody follow and nobody even implement it. And on the other side, you are not making any kind of punishment to whoever is not following the law. And this has become a culture, I'm sorry to say, that you say whatever you want, I'm not going to follow. I mean, people not going to follow it. Until when you keep doing laws and you are not activating it. And people now get used to that. Say whatever you want. I mean, I'll tell you simply. Something about the garbage, a lot of things that is occupying the streets, and now the government is trying to clear the streets to make it. Still, people do it for 1 hour, and then the next hour. I'm not saying even for 1 day. This is again, what can we do?
The law should be enforced strictly.
Enforcement of the law must be.
It's 2 points, if you allow me. Number 1 is the weakness of government enforcing the law. Number 2, there is no transparency, and we've got a problem. Basically, we put the law and then we reverse it. Here, you give a sign that you're weak. Number 1, and the Egyptians are very clever. They know. That's number 1. Number 2, we've got a problem with control. Control in terms of implementation and the follow-up.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I'm very sorry. I wish I could elaborate with you, because I have
This can take us another session, by the way.
Of course.
The point you have just raised.
But the key word to the next parliament or the upcoming parliament, if you could agree with me, is transparency, efficiency,
efficiency and accountability. Accountability is on top. Transparency and accountability.
Do you agree with me?
Exactly. The basic functions.
Right. Of course, Dr. Huda Awad, Professor of Political Science, thank you very much. And Dr. Ahmed Mohanna, Professor of Political Science and Political Analyst, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I guess this brings us to the end of this edition of Windows and Current Affairs. Thank you very much for joining us. Please do join us again next week.